Hey everybody, this is James Davis back making another video for Stocks Poker. Today's video comes to us with somewhat of an interesting twist. I'm actually, real quick, I'm going to turn sounds off. I am actually playing this video in sort of a prop bet with Stocks Poker member Q-Tip. I left a message in one of my old videos because he had asked me to play at one of my stakes on PokerStars, and so I told him I wanted to swap money or whatever, and then he kind of made a joke saying, well, if you'd rather just pay me back with coaching if you lose, then that's fine too. So we actually worked out an arrangement where for every $200 I lose here, I'll give him an hour of coaching, and then I'll just send him back the difference. So I do have incentive to win here because I don't wind up in a 10-hour coaching session. But, it's also not the end of the world. I don't mind coaching, but it's also not something I've been doing actively in a really long time. And, I'm competitive, and I don't want to lose the bet. So here we are. I did warm up a little bit in these games. I'm stuck already, I think $100. So I think in a sense of fairness, I'm going to round. If I get stuck somewhere between $0 and $200, I'll round up and give him an hour for whatever that price was. Or maybe we can work an hour. I'll just send him, if I lose $8, I'll just send him $1,800 back, and we can do an hour of coaching if he'd prefer that. So far, I'll say that this game, or these two games anyway, that I'm in right now, do definitely seem to be tougher than any games I played on full tilt. I don't know if that's the stakes or bad table selection, but yeah, definitely so far these games are playing somewhat tough. So I think that some of the concepts, I think I'm going to be more inclined to just semi-bluff outright. Going to be less inclined to just, I don't know, maybe try to just insanely run over everybody. But we'll see. I've already 4-bet and folded to a 5-bet. Guys seem to be performing their actions pretty much instantly, which on a site where there's no pot button is, a sign that these guys have thought through their ideas to some degree. I am on a waiting list for another table. Gonna just get on another one because I don't mind playing against these regulars, and I think that they're probably beatable, but I don't want to lose my bet. So I'm gonna try to find some guys who are a little weaker. This alpha foil's a short stack. He's somewhat annoying. This table, I'm guessing it's just all regulars. And I've been getting 3-bet a fair amount, so I think I'm actually going to tighten up. The 8-5 suited, I think, would have been a totally standard open for me on the 1-2 games on full tilt, but in these games, I think I'm just going to need to tighten up a little bit. So far, I have seen almost like an overabundance of 3-betting, tons and tons and tons of 3-betting, so I think I'm going to be 4-betting a little bit more than I was in the last game I played, and I think the texture sort of calls for it. I'm going to be opening a little less lightly, and I'm also going to be calling, when people 3-bet me out the blinds, I might be calling a few more hands in position against a 3-bet. So that's kind of my strategy so far. Dricek up here. I just assume that's the way his name's pronounced, Dricek. Czechoslovakian, perhaps. When he insta-min re-raises and then bets around the pot, I think that he has a pretty big hand. He's kind of been betting small with his bluffs or check folding when he has nothing. So I would have given him credit for a hand there. One thing that's annoying is no pot button. I keep raising to lazy amounts, so I got to cut that out. Ace-8, obviously not good enough. I could have think about squeezing, but why bother? Alright, so I will fire a continuation bet. Obviously not an ideal board, it's going to hit a lot of his range, but I am going to see how these players adjust, because I think it's kind of a mistake to assume that just because guys have learned how to generate pre-flop action, which it seems like a lot of these guys have, a lot of them seem to be playing what I call the poker video style of not much cold calling, lots of 3-betting pre-flop. That doesn't mean that they're going to really be good at appropriately testing me post-flop in other sorts of situations. So I'm just going to I'm going to force them to play well. I'm not just going to let them get away with only playing when they're comfortable, which may very well be in 3-bet pots. So we got Supistan on 2 tables, definitely a regular. Someone said hello to Jam earlier, so very, very likely that he's a regular. Pretty hilarious name, Gem, from the old, I don't know if you guys remember, but it's the show. It was like this all-girl rock and roll band, and Gem was the lead singer. I hope that's where they gets the name from. But well, I'm not ashamed to admit that I watched it a few times when I was a young one. All right. These guys got to play faster. I got to win, man. But so yeah, that's how I'll generally be changing my style. When Drechek min raises this flop, once again, I think that he often has a pretty good hand. Talented Tom, I would guess, has a pretty good hand too, possibly 2-pair or ace-jack or something. Ooh, I forgot you don't get to sweat it on Poker Stars. So annoying. I wonder what Drechek had there. Ace-9 maybe? Ace-queen or something? Yeah, ace-queen. Alright. This is a board where I do have to bet. And take it down again. Don't mind that action when I only have the 4-6 of clubs on an ace-queen-jack 2 on our board. So we're very sad to see Drechek go. He was, without a doubt, the worst player at the table. I kind of instinctually raised Jack-7 suited. I might take that back. But we win, so not bad. Talented Tom, crying about short stackers. I always think it's so funny how, I don't like short stackers as much as the next guy, but I think it's very funny how people just sit and cry about short stacks at the table, because all you do is motivate them and feel good about their choice to be short stacking. And short stacking is a perfectly viable way to make money at poker. So, while it's annoying, crying about it, in my opinion, actually makes it worse. I think one other thing I might try to ramp up my 3-betting frequency, because typically guys who are kind of aware of a good 3-betting strategy aren't quite there on the next level, which is being able to 4-bet with good frequency. So I'm up on a new table. Oops. I am. Yeah. Well, it's got Gem, although it does have one guy that looks a little weaker, so I am going to swap that out when the blinds get to me. Alright, 5-9 suited is not enough. I don't think, because these guys are pretty squeezy. If they were bad or just weak, I think I might actually call. But, it's obviously a pretty loose call. Alright, so when we get the blind on the other table, I'm going to Sub that bad boy in. Oh. Camtasia's like blocking me out from doing a dragon. What the heck, man? Alright, pocket queens. Premium hand. Alright, so interesting spot here because Gem's already jammed over our 4-bet once. And I think he would, I kind of think he would think that I would have to have a premium hand to do this. But being out of position, I still think it's the standard play. And I did fold to a once, so maybe he'll try to out-level me or something. And we have to call. Oh, that's a good card. Not the best card. Oh, and he dumps it. Interested to see what he has. Possible that I sucked out there, but annoying poker stars doesn't let you sweat it, which gets on my nerves. I'm not going to c-bet here. These guys are kind of tricky. Ace king. So, hey, we were head on every street. Can't complain about that, right? Alright, double up. That means we're up a little bit for the session. Ace king can't call when he bets into the field like that. I really have to figure out how to drag this table. It's just going to drive me totally crazy. What I'll do is this. Oh, weird. Camtasia blocks it out. I'm annoyed. I guess I'm just going to be forced to play on these tables. Oh, well. But yeah, with the queens. I mean, it's obviously just like standard to 4-bet out of position and get the rest in, but possibly if I had aces, which would take a lot of like ace king out of his range, I should have just I would have been better off just calling, because I do think that in general he was going to put me on a pretty decent hand when I did that. Oh yes, I got this other table finally. Alright, so I am going to sub in what looks like a better table after this 5-6 suited hand goes off. Alright. Oh, unbelievable. Okay, that should be the last of the housekeeping we do. But yeah, not too much to talk about with the queens. Get it in, and since they don't let you sweat it, you just have to hope that you're good. Which I don't know, man. I find that to be pretty tilting sometimes. But just because I'm like an action junkie and I like to know what I'm rooting for. So yeah, over here we have Slim Boy and Balls NL, kind of inappropriate, who both do not seem like regulars or anything. They've been doing way more cold calling than these other guys. So I'm going to put them in the not really trying to play well category. Possibly Balls is. But yeah, I really don't think that Slim Boy is really playing any semblance of a contrived strategy. So I am just going to test here. 5-8's pretty weak, but I think that he's somewhat likely to call and give up on the flop if he misses. And Superstan, I don't think it's going to call. Like ever here, but it's nice when it works out. get a few free dollars with 8-5 offsuited. King Jack, we're just going to dump it. I could think about challenging if this guy was raising a later position, but with a guy who's not a huge favorite to just give up in the big blind, he's never folding ace queen or something. If I do this, if I squeeze, I think I just get the right price to dump it right away. This table is dying out. Oh man, we played an interesting hand on the other table that unfortunately, I wish I could go back in time and show you because it was a total beauty. Basically what happened was I raised pocket threes under the gun. Turt, who we've pegged as a regular, cold calls in middle position. The flop is king nine deuce. I bet three-quarter pot or something. He calls instantly, and I think calling instantly is still a sign of somewhat of a weak hand, because even guys who like to slow play in general, and I could think about just calling the ace king suited here, but I think Jam possibly doesn't like us, so I am just going to turn it up. Now he thinks we showed queens last time. It's possible that he'll give up more easily. And we don't mind just taking it down, because ace king is the type of hand where the implied odds post flop, unless he does indeed have a worse ace, are not so great. So we don't mind taking it down right there. And we also tempt him to get it in real bad with like ace queen or ace jack suited or something if he makes a bad read. So anyway, like I was saying over here, I raise pocket threes. Then he instantly calls on a knight and king 2 flop. I think instant calls are just always weak hands, unless the guy is very sophisticated, because most people just think when they have a pretty good hand, they don't just call right away. So when he instant calls, he's just begging for me to put more barrels, and if it comes off in a way that I like it later on, nothing really to say here, except I'm going to 4-bet again and call it off if he goes all in, obviously. And so yeah, the turn was a 5, so it's king 9-5-2. Oh, now he calls. It's kind of annoying because now I like put him on aces or something, or like queens or jacks. I don't know. But now I'm just going to check and make it seem like I'm giving up, because he has shown a lot of strength. Now I'm just going to like overbet, I think, to represent weakness. And when he doesn't insta-call, I know he doesn't have aces, which is nice. Well, yeah, possibly I should have bet less there. I don't know, man. I don't know what these regulars are calling the 4th bet with. Who knows? I think he maybe had like ace king or something. He didn't really think long enough for me to put him on a pair. But yeah, so back to that hand. It was king 9-2, and then a 5 on the turn. I bet around. Now I turn my bet up a little bit. I bet around the pot, and he instant calls again. And when he's instant calling again, I just think in general he's trying to send a subconscious message like, "Hey, buddy, I'm calling. I didn't even think about this, so give up, man. Stop bluffing, please." And then the river was another total brick, a 7 or something, and I bet like 150 into 160, and he just folded pretty much instantly. All right, so here I have king 10 suited. He min raises, which is interesting. because it is often a sign of strength. I think it's possible he would have just jammed a flush draw. But I do think that a lot of the cards that make my hand are kind of action killers. I have just a million outs if he has like a ace queen or something, so I'll get it in, and with the possibility that he could have a worse flush draw, I think that's just what I got to do. Now, so we probably lose this one. Pocket kings, okay. Not really sure I could have played that any differently. I don't, like I said. Sorry. Am I getting sick again? Goodness. You know, obviously I didn't know he had exactly pocket kings. But, you know, like if he does have ace queen or queen nine or something, and many of my outs, the jack, the king, possibly clubs, are going to make him not really love his hand anymore, so. Woman raising is a sign of strength. My equity is just so good on that flop. You know, because I have great equity if he has the ace high flush draw, and I have great equity if he has a worse flush draw, obviously. So here I probably could have even bet less, because he's just not calling. Let's say he has an ace on this flop. But something I like to do against weaker players is like kind of like optimize my bet sizing. In that, like I don't know, I kind of just don't think that they're going to understand the different ways that I'll adjust my bet sizing. So here I am in a 3-bet. There's more dead money in the pot. I take a few high cards out of the range. The only issue is I did just kind of lose a pretty good sized pot, so he may think I'm tilting, but we'll see. And he just jams it. I think he's actually trying to induce a call. Sadly, over here we get no action. Kind of wanted him to try to take a little bit of a bluff or something. But not the end of the world. We had a good price to attack that. I'm going to call here. Queen jack suit is pretty strong. And I'm just going to check and call. But yeah, we were getting a pretty good price on that king jack. So I don't hate trying to squeeze there. And plus, if I'm going to get him in the frame where he can only 4-bet to a jam, he's going to put himself in some precarious situations later on. Tempted to check here and let him bluff. I don't think he can usually call, but if he's going to not bluff that turn, I think he's often going to not bluff the river when check 2 either. Because I think he expects me to bluff. At least good players, you know, I would always just bet there because good players just expect you. Like if you do have jack 10 there, they don't expect you to check and just like let yourself lose to ace high. So if a good player is going to expect me to bluff, then I'm just going to value bet. And once again, let him try to make a tough decision. Okay, so this table is all regulars, but I kind of am getting a pretty good grasp on how these guys are playing. I think Supistan and New Style are kind of playing a 3-bet or fold strategy unless they're like in a blind battle. Turt, I'm going to readjust my read. I don't think he's necessarily a total regular, but I think he is trying to play well. So when he cold calls out of the small blind, I'm going to put him generally on like a pocket pair. So I am going to bet. And if he calls once, well, 10 is obviously pretty interesting. Now he bets. Very strange. I'm going to call once because he can't bluff. Yeah, he had it. But it's like weird. I don't know. It's very strange. It's possible I should have just like overbet jammed that river as a bluff. Because once he takes that line, I do pretty much put him on an ace, but I think he could have also had like a flush draw. Although it would be very weird to try to bet that out. It's possible I should have just folded the turn. Because it would be very strange for him to... Because he's just going to wind up overcharging himself if he's like a decent player on that turn, if I do have an ace. So obviously I'm just going to raise, and then he's going to hate life. So we're going to call the king 5. We're just going to check and call it again. I kind of thought too long over here. Kind of put him on a 4 actually. Insta-bet decent size on 2 streets, but and he has a full house. But I don't really also think there's too much I can do. Oh man, I thought I was losing, but yeah, I'm definitely going to call a small pair here with Slim Boy in the big blind. So I don't think he's going to squeeze like ever. And I don't think Superstan. Well, interesting when Superstan checks this. I'm going to check it though. I think he has like either a pair or king high. Checks it again. This is very weird. I would never expect him to have a decent ace here. But I think he could have some sort of like pair between 6s and aces that... Oops. That wanted to just see a cheap showdown because he has showdown value or induce a bluff or something. And I just realized that I'm sitting here with my headset on, but it's actually just recording with the mic in my computer, so I hope to God that there were not too many loud banging noises. That is so annoying. Oh my goodness. Check, check, check. Yep. So I'm just sitting here like a dummy with the headset on, not plugged in. Like I'm honestly like in a sitcom or something. Oh well. I hope it's still good sound quality for you guys. Alright, so far I would say this game is playing differently than the full tilt 1 and 2. The regulars really are playing a lot more 3-betting. There don't seem to be quite as many of the trying to play well, but actually playing like type passive, almost like aggressive when they're generating action, but otherwise just like hoping for cheap showdowns. I'm definitely not seeing quite as much of that. We are up for this session, so sad for my man Q-Tip, who told me he was openly rooting for me to lose so he could get paid off in lessons. The jacks here, not quite sure how I want to do this. I think I am going to 3-bet because I don't expect this guy to really bluff me too much. Like a good reason to play your jacks slowly is if you can get guys to fire 3 barrels when you have an overpair. But I don't really see him as the type of guy to do that. Alright, so my thought process here, I'm going to raise to 3-5 because I think I'm just better than him. So my thought process here, obviously his range is something like 2 diamonds, a slow play pair bigger than queens, ace queen. I really just don't think he folds any of that. Probably a little too deep for me to try to mess around too much, so we'll just dump it. Kind of annoying. It's possible I should have just checked on that flop, but I think that kind of does outline the exact strength of my hand, and I don't want to get in a situation. I don't know. I didn't want to get into an uncomfortable situation, so I decided to bet. I think I probably should have just checked, though, because I think if I check and call, he would have had a tough time bluffing off another street, and I think he would have opted to take a free river if he did have diamonds. Yeah, I think definitely checking was the correct play there, but that's why we learn. A more interesting scenario comes up if it's like 8-4-3 and two diamonds instead of queen 8-3 or queen 8-4. I think in that situation I'm kind of forced to jam it in and let him reevaluate if he does have like 9s or 10s. And he's obviously going to call if he does have diamonds, but yeah, I think that would have been my strategy if it were 8-4-3. But I'm going to be careful not to like pigeonhole him into any specific style. Certainly, just because he didn't try to triple barrel me once on a very dry board doesn't mean he's never going to bluff. So it's definitely possible he was just like raising small to try to take it down on a board where he knows that I'm going to have a tough time like really attacking effectively. So 10-9, he jammed over my squeeze last time, but I'm going to try it again. And see if I can get him in a frame of mind where he's just jamming all the time, and he is now, so I'm not, well, maybe I will squeeze him again, but in general, I think that I'm just putting myself in a better position later on if I do have less than a premium hand. I think I'm going to induce him to play poorly against me, so we shall see, we shall see. The tally right now is I'm still up a little bit, so right now Q-tip is going to be less and less, because I'll be able to send him back the entire 2,000. This guy re-raises. I am going to call with the 6s. I don't think he needs to have a premium hand to do this. And of course we just flop the nuts outright. Now my reasoning was I was going to float a lot of flops that didn't contain an ace or a king and see if I couldn't get him to give up on the turn, which is a line I take against pretty good players often. And I think when I study my results, I have had a pretty good result with that line. And I'm going to defend the 2-3 suited, because we've just kind of played an aggressive hand. I think he's just going to give up. Well, maybe not. So now 9's not a great card. 7 is a great card though. Yeah, you can't win. So we're just going to call it the 2-3. So yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I do think the combination of implied odds and just being able to win it outright. But when he does miss, he's sad. What can you do? Okay, so 2-3 suited. Sort of interesting. We're somewhat deep, and I think if a 4 rattles off, he's going to have trouble getting away. Same thing with a 3, and it's also possible he just doesn't have an ace. So it's somewhat dubious to call there. Possibly, just based on a pot odds perspective. Maybe not, because I really think that if he does have a big ace, or like a set or something, we do get paid off. Or not a set, because then we lose. But I think if he does have a big ace, we get paid off appropriately on the river. And now he checks. I really just think I'm ahead. I don't think there's any sense in bluffing. Yeah. So I think that's one interesting thing about calling ace-high boards. In general, that play might have looked strange to you, but it's kind of just like a total equity calculation that involves a few things. It involves implied odds if he does have a big hand, because like if a 3 comes off on the river, is he just checking ace-king? I really don't think so, and if a 4 comes, he probably will check, but I can bet big and represent that I've missed some other draw. And generally people that call ace-high boards on one street, that was somewhat dry, but people that call ace-high boards for one street don't always give up when any multitude of cards come off on the river. So I think my play might have been fine, and that just goes to show you the power of position. Well, this is the spot we've all been waiting for. We want him to just jam over like he's been doing every single time. And then he finally gives up. Oh boy. Jam 87. You're a cruel mistress. We'll continue to play this hand, table 3-handed. We think Balls NL is somewhat of a weak player. And it can be interesting to see the psychology of somewhat of tougher players. And I think in general, it's worth noting that I think weak players, like this guy, $300, he's not waiting on wait lists on full tables. He's ready for his action and he wants it now. So I think sitting at shorthanded tables, even if you're not totally comfortable with it, might be smart on these super high volume sites like PokerStars, because eventually people are going to show up and demand action. Alright, so this guy kind of hates us after the last hand. I'm going to call. I like Queen Jack suited a little more than like a King Jack type hand, because I think Ace King, he's way more likely to re-raise than Ace Queen. So that kind of seems like a small deal, but you know, it's just what I do. I'm going to check the 8-10, try to induce, and I'm going to bet now. I am just going to call with the Queen Jack over here. Make like the second nuts. If he bets, I don't know how happy I am if he bets, to be truthful. Nah, I'm pretty happy. I think he would have expected me to raise a 10 on the flop. So now I'll bet 160, kind of set myself up for an all in on the river. And now I'm going to have to call because we've gone through this routine one too many times. Pretty good board so far. We want no green cards. Well, yeah, see? Gem87, when I'm sitting there setting you up with that play, just don't 4-bet all in with the ace-deuce offsuit, man, because even with ace-deuce offsuit, like let's say he tempts me into some call with king-queen, like he's like a 60-40 favorite, like in his absolute biggest fantasy scenario, and every other time I call, he's dead. You know, he's a 30-70 guy at best every other time. Ace-deuce off is just not the hand you want to 4-bet all in. It'd be one thing if he 4-bet me small there, gave himself some room to fold, but he didn't. So he deserves everything he got. You know, 6 is a great card for us. We're going to bet again. He remembers this is the same guy that I did this before with nothing. So I guess he was on like heart draw or something. But I don't expect him to bet a weak ace there. I expect him to check it back if I check. So I think I just need to bet and represent a bluff because I did that to him. You know, I 3-barreled him before, so that's kind of the psychology that goes in. Alright, so yeah, I think Gem just taught us a lesson. First of all, why 4-betting all in? It's just generally not the best play. I mean, I think it's not the best play with your best hands, and it's not the best play with your weak hands either. Because with your weak hands, when you 4-bet all in, you're only going to get called by hands that you're behind against, you know. And even if you are going to be forced to 4-bet all in, do it with something like 8-9 suited that's a lot less likely to be dominated, you know. I mean, yeah, ace-deuce has more outs against like 10s through kings, but I don't know. Yeah, I really don't think that that's the correct play. I think that 4-betting to a small amount with ace-deuce there really might not be so bad because, you know, he has an ace, which takes an ace out of my range. And, you know, he's been 4-betting all in so much that I think that he could have easily represented a 4-bet, you know, kind of like a, well, now I have a strong hand, so now I'm going to 4-bet to a smaller amount and hope that I get some action. And I think he could have really accurately represented that. But he didn't. He just jammed it in. And no offense to you out there, Jim, if you're playing. But you just don't need to ever 4-bet all in. I think that the other thing about 4-betting small that I like is when you do, you leave yourself some fold equity. Good players know that you've left yourself some fold equity, so when you have aces, you know, maybe they have 4-6 suited and now they're going to take their stand and say, hey, let's get the rest in. Maybe he's 4-betting small because he doesn't have a great hand. But then when you have 8-9 suited and you're 4-betting weakly, Oh, sorry, I get distracted by the hand. Then when you have a 9 suited and you're 4-betting weekly, you might get in a situation where you convince a guy to go all in, whatever. But at that point, you have enough fold equity where you can just fold. So you 4-bet lightly to a small amount because you can fold if they shove, and you give them the chance to bluff. I think if you go all in, you really just put them in a situation where they're never going to make a huge mistake. Phew. Easy for me to say, right? Sorry, that was very rambling. Amen at CHYAN. I'm just going to call the jacks now. Maybe try to induce a squeeze from Papa Fox or Turt, or Alpha Foil for that matter. And Turt does it. So we're going to jam in over that. I love the cold call jam line because I find that players so often have trouble putting you on a real hand, and you get calls from all sorts of weak hands. King Jack, we do have the double gutter. So I'll bet once and see if he has like an ace or something. I expect him to fold. Well, now it's kind of like annoying because I think this guy could easily have like some hand he's slow playing. I'm going to call and defer the action to him and see if he calls the flop. I put myself in such a tricky spot here because now I've under-repped my hand. I just really hope this guy folds now. Because if he calls, I think I have to fold, but I think I sometimes fold the worst hand. Oh boy. Oh goodness gracious. Alright, well let's put him on a range here. Certainly Turt could be tilting or something, but he really hasn't been generating that much action. This line just kind of like reeks of a slow play. Oh, I'm getting such a good price, but I could get left off later. Man, oh man, oh man. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to dump it and kill myself if it was bad. Somebody have it. Oh, thank goodness. Man, that was so strange. It was like all the stars aligned against me there with the jacks. It was like such a flop. I think they just as easily could have had opposite hands of that. I really don't hate my play, but it was a very uncomfortable situation to be in. Yeah, I mean, I think I still stand up. Or I think I still rather stand by my play. I don't know. I think like the worst possible hand GTP could have had was 8s. And then obviously he could have 10s, but I think that all the rest of the hands, like 7s, 9s, and hands better than jacks, I think just wound up making up too big a portion of his range for me to profitably go forward there. Here I was actually considering a 3-bet, but I'm going to dump it. Just because these guys are poor players and I don't want to get in a situation where, they call my 3-bet or something with a pocket pair and I get in a weird situation post-flop. Anyway, I'm just about going to wrap it up. I think I'm going to kind of talk about my thoughts about the regulars at these limits first. The first thing is, some of these guys seem pretty fearless. They were 3-betting me very aggressively. Jem obviously wasn't shy about 4-betting his bluffs all in. He hasn't really come up with a perfect 4-betting strategy yet. I think he 4-bets it's way too big. It's just 4-bet jamming is just a bad play. But at least one thing I will say for him is that he's come up with a counter strategy to go against the everybody 3-bet strategy. So I think that it's possible that if these guys are 3-betting him really light and not calling his 4-bet shoves lightly, that he might be showing a profit with that 4-bet jamming routine. It's more probable that it's somewhat of a break-even play that's really helping his image in other areas. But it's a good sign for him that he's at least thinking of counter strategies, because I find that a lot of people who 3-bet a lot are not at the point where they're comfortable 4-betting a lot. Alright, so the king-queen will just bet it. I do find that the guys that are just calling, when they do just get to just calling, they are not quite as likely to call you down light. It's very, I think that old concept that I talked about many videos ago still applies, where you can continue to apply pressure on non-scare cards and cause people to make mistakes by folding the best hand post-flop. Alright, so Superstan bets roughly the pot when I check to him. He knows that that's a terrible card for most of my range, so I'm going to call. I do have to fold this card, sadly. Because the reason I did that, because I did think, Jack 9, Jack 10. I mean, now I think he does have the 10 for sure, but, I thought 8, 9 was a good part of his range, 8, 10. Obviously Jack 10. So now I can dub it. Kind of annoying. I think the river did hurt me there. More interesting would have been, of course, if a 3 came off on the river and I checked what he would have done, if he would have been sophisticated enough to turn Jack 10 into a bluff or what. But I'm not sure. But yeah, so definitely not the most interesting spots I've been in videos, but hopefully still somewhat educational. I think what I'm going to do next is, instead of moving up to 3-6, I think I'm going to make a video 2-4 on full tilt and see how those two sites of the same limit compare. I'm actually kind of sad to be leaving this game, because maybe I'll just play it. It's a pretty good game. But yeah, we'll call it a video for now. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing your feedback and questions in the forums. Till then, farewell. Oh, actually, let's just check in. We'll see how much we won. Darn it. Alright. Hey, quit it. Why do I keep pressing the wrong button? Clicking join waiting list like a big dummy. Where is the cashier button? Alright, whatever. I'm going to call it a video. I won. I'm not sure how much, but I did win. Thanks for watching, guys.